Fear isn't just an emotion, it's a leash. A modern invention dressed up as safety, caution, prudence. But strip away the excuses and what's left. Fear is the quiet slavery men have agreed to live under. Fear has become the culture's favorite drug, cheap, legal, and endlessly addictive. Think about it. Whole industries thrive on keeping you afraid. The news cycles? Fear. Politicians? Fear. Therapists and pharmaceutical companies, they package fear into pills and diagnoses. But the most dangerous fear isn't external. It's the silent choke inside your own chest. The fear of humiliation, the fear of rejection, the fear of failure, and worst of all, the fear of being truly alive. Nietzsche called life a will to power. Not power over others, power over yourself. Yet most men today live as shadows, shrinking back at the very point where they should expand. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He was right. Fear is theater. It plays a movie in your head about everything that might go wrong. You're the audience, paralyzed while the show runs on repeat. The psychologists prove it too. Exposure therapy has one core truth. The only way to kill fear is to walk straight into it. Avoidance feeds fear. Confrontation starves it. Viktor Frankl, who faced the nightmare of Nazi camps, said meaning is found in suffering. Meaning is what makes fear worth facing. Without it, fear just consumes you. With it, fear becomes fuel. But here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Fear has been weaponized as emasculation. Men who once faced lions now tremble before emails. Men who crossed oceans now freeze at the thought of asking a woman out. Fear is the soft poison that turns warriors into obedient pets. The first step, name the enemy. Fear isn't guidance, fear isn't wisdom, fear is the cage. And every second you bow to it, you trade your birthright as a man for the comfort of a prisoner. The question is, are you ready to tear the leash off? Look around. Fear has become the new god. Entire societies kneel to it. They call it security protocols, public health, risk management. But let's be honest. What is all this but worship of safety at the expense of life? Men line up like obedient parishioners, praying at the altar of comfort, terrified of stepping out of line. Marcus Aurelius wrote that death smiles at us all, and all a man can do is smile back. Yet today, death isn't even the real terror. Embarrassment is. Men are more afraid of looking weak than being weak. More afraid of being judged than of living a meaningless life. We've traded the sword for the keyboard, the battlefield for the office cubicle, and in doing so, we've bred a generation of men allergic to risk. Psychologists call this learned helplessness. Fail enough times, get mocked enough times, and the brain wires itself to stop trying. Neuroplasticity proves it. The mind reshapes itself around fear if you let it. Avoid fear long enough and you program your brain to cower. But here's the brutal twist. Neuroplasticity also means you can rewire the opposite. You can forge a brain that hunts fear down like prey. Fear is the perfect control mechanism because it feels rational. Who doesn't want to be safe? But the Stoics would spit on that logic. To them, a man who avoids fear avoids life. Camus went further. He said life is absurd, so the only victory is rebellion. Rebellion against despair, against meaninglessness, against fear itself. And here's the dark secret. Society doesn't want fearless men. Fearless men are uncontrollable. Fearless men don't buy insurance they don't need, don't swallow propaganda, don't beg for approval. Fearless men build empires, burn old systems, start revolutions. So ask yourself, are you kneeling in the church of fear? Or are you ready to burn it down? Here's the ugly truth. Men have betrayed themselves. Not because they're weak by nature, but because they've been taught weakness is virtue. Every screen tells you, be careful, play safe, don't rock the boat. And men listen. They tuck their balls into a box labeled socially acceptable and call it maturity. But maturity without courage is just slow decay. Jung warned of this. He said the man who avoids his shadow, his darker primal self, becomes consumed by it. Fear is that shadow. You hide from it, and it rules you. You face it, and it becomes your ally. Yet most men let the shadow run the show in silence. They fear confrontation, so they swallow resentment. They fear rejection, so they numb themselves with porn, with alcohol, with scrolling screens, and they dare to call it coping. The ancients would laugh. The Stoics trained themselves to lose everything so that fear had nothing left to steal. Marcus Aurelius imagined his own death daily to stay unshaken. Epictetus reminded men that slavery isn't chains on the body, it's chains on the mind. And today, men willingly enslave themselves with invisible chains forged from their own imagination. But masculinity was never meant to be sterile. It was meant to be dangerous, sharpened against the grindstone of fear. A man who doesn't know how to confront fear isn't peaceful, he's harmless. And harmless men don't protect, don't create, don't inspire. They just wither, waiting for permission to breathe. Ask yourself, when did you stop hunting fear? When did you trade the fire in your gut for the comfort of compliance? The betrayal isn't out there, it's in the mirror. And the only way out is war with fear itself. Fear is raw energy, that pounding heart, that tight chest, the trembling hands, it's the body flooding itself with fuel. But most men mistake it for poison. They feel it and retreat. They think, this means stop. No, it means go. Freud said the unconscious is a battlefield of instincts. One of them is fear. But Jung reminded us, within fear lies the very archetype of growth, the dragon guarding the treasure. You don't slay fear by running. You slay it by stepping closer to the fire it spits. Fear is the dragon, courage is the sword, and the treasure is the man you're supposed to become. Modern science finally caught up to what the philosophers always knew. Cognitive behavioral therapy shows it. When you challenge the thought behind fear, when you dismantle its lie, you rob it of power. And mindfulness trains the brain to sit in the storm without drowning. Pair that with exposure, repeated, deliberate, ruthless confrontation, and your nervous system literally rewires itself. Neuroplasticity isn't a metaphor. It's biological proof that fear can be burned into fuel. But here's the catch. This isn't a weekend project. You don't dabble in courage like a hobby. You forge it like steel. By putting yourself where fear breathes hottest, by refusing the easy exit, by teaching your body to stop associating fear with paralysis and start associating fear with freedom. Imagine every fear you've got stacked in front of you like locked doors. Behind each one is a version of you with more power, more clarity, more life. Most men spend their days sitting in the hallway, staring at the doors, convincing themselves it's safer that way. The few, the rare, kick them open one by one until the hallway ends and the horizon begins. Fear is the signal, not the stop sign, the spark that ignites the fire. And the only question that matters now is, will you burn? Why does fear feel so heavy today? Because it's engineered that way. Fear isn't just personal, it's political, it's cultural, it's the most effective leash ever designed. Entire governments, media empires, and corporate machines profit off your trembling. They whisper, be afraid, buy this, obey this, follow this. And men, stripped of their primal defiance, obey. Jordan Peterson warns that a man who doesn't face fear becomes resentful and weak, dangerous in the worst way, not to tyrants, but to himself and those around him. Fear makes men predictable. Predictable men are easy to sell to, easy to herd, easy to silence. That's the real agenda, emasculation through obedience. Think about history. Every revolution, every empire built, every discovery came from men who ignored fear. Do you think Spartacus asked permission to fight? Do you think Galileo worried about being cancelled? Do you think Frankl, staring death in the camps, let fear dictate his meaning? Fear is always the weapon of the system. Courage is always the rebellion. The Stoics knew it. The only real freedom is mastery over fear. You can't be free if the possibility of pain or rejection owns you. You can't be sovereign if every choice is filtered through, what if I fail? What if they laugh? That's not living. That's being a domesticated animal. And here's the shock most men can't swallow. The system doesn't even need chains anymore. You've chained yourself. You censor your own words before anyone else does. You shrink your dreams before anyone tells you no. You keep yourself small and then blame the world for boxing you in. The truth? You are the warden. Fear is the prison, and the key has always been in your hand. Here's the most brutal fact. Fear only dies when the coward dies, not physically, but psychologically. The version of you that flinches, that hesitates, that bows its head to every imagined consequence, that self has to be executed. If you protect it, you stay trapped. If you kill it, you walk free. Nietzsche called it the death of God, the collapse of illusions that once gave men comfort. Fear is the modern God. False, demanding, insatiable, and killing it feels like sacrilege. But it's necessary, because every time you act despite fear, you drive a blade into the coward within. Camus said life is absurd. That's liberating. If nothing has ultimate meaning, why kneel before fear at all? Fear only matters if you believe the stakes are sacred. But the truth is, the only sacred thing is the way you choose to live. And a life ruled by fear isn't living, it's waiting. Psychologists call it extinction learning. Confront fear enough times and the brain unlearns its panic. This is science confirming what warriors always knew. Courage is repetition. You don't become fearless by thinking about it. You become fearless by killing the coward every single day until there's nothing left but the man who acts. Picture this. A soldier crossing a battlefield doesn't stop to analyze the tremble in his legs. He moves forward because stillness is death. And in that forward motion, fear loses its teeth. That's the path. Motion. Action. Striking before fear convinces you not to. Cowards die many times before their death. The brave die only once. The question is, which one are you becoming? No man conquers fear alone. The myth of the self-made warrior is bullshit. Even the greatest had brothers at their side. Marcus Aurelius had his fellow Stoics. Jung had Freud before he broke away. Soldiers march in units, not in isolation. Why? Because courage multiplies when shared. Look at modern men, isolated, glued to screens, drowning in silent battles. Fear grows in the dark, it thrives in solitude. But put two men together, facing the same fire, and fear shrinks. One man panics, the other steadies him. Next time, the roles reverse. That's brotherhood. That's why warriors trusted each other more than themselves. Society wants atomized men, each isolated in their fear, because alone you're weak, compliant, controllable. But men who gather, who share truth, who push each other into the ring, into the storm, into the unknown, those men are dangerous. Dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to the system, dangerous to fear itself. Psychologists see it too. Group exposure, group accountability, group resilience. Fear collapses faster when men face it together. Your nervous system learns courage faster when you feel the energy of others refusing to bow. You rewire not just your own brain, but the collective one. So ask yourself, who's standing next to you when fear arrives? Do you have brothers who call out your excuses, who drag you into the arena when you'd rather hide? Or are you surrounded by men who justify your paralysis, who tell you comfort is enough? A lone man can conquer fear. But a brotherhood of fearless men? They can change the world. Every culture worth remembering had rituals where men were forced to stare fear in the face. Spartans sent their boys into the wild with nothing but a blade. Native tribes sent theirs on vision quests, starving and alone until the spirit cracked open their mind. Even medieval apprentices faced brutal initiations before they could be called men. Fear was never an obstacle, it was the crucible. And what do we have now? Participation trophies, HR-approved workplaces, therapy language spoon-fed as gospel. We've turned initiation into sedation. Men don't face trials anymore, they face paperwork, and so fear doesn't forge them, it festers inside them, growing like mold in the dark. But here's the truth. You don't need a tribe to hand you the right. You can forge your own. Pick the thing that terrifies you most and do it. Not once, not for show, but until fear bends its knee. Cold showers? Too small. Public speaking? Better. Quitting the job you hate? Stronger. Telling the truth you've swallowed for years? That's real initiation. Jordan Peterson often says meaning is found on the edge of chaos. That's where the rite of passage lives, on the edge where fear screams the loudest. Step over it, and you transform. Stay behind it, and you rot in the same skin forever. The boy bows to fear, the man walks through it, and only one of them gets to leave a mark on this world. Here's the paradox. The only way to live without being owned by fear is to deliberately walk into danger. Not recklessness, discipline. There's a difference. Recklessness is chaos. Discipline is controlled fire. A soldier trains under gunfire not because it's safe, but because the brain must learn calm in the storm. A man who never places himself in danger will always be its slave when it arrives uninvited. Marcus Aurelius meditated daily on death, poverty, betrayal, not to depress himself, but to blunt the edge of fear. Modern science says the same thing. Stress inoculation. Repeated, deliberate doses of fear build resilience, rewiring the nervous system to adapt instead of collapse. Every cold exposure, every brutal workout, every public risk is a message to your body. I own this fear, not the other way around. But discipline is the key. Without it, danger consumes. With it, danger instructs. Men who avoid all risk become soft. Men who seek chaos without structure self-destruct. But men who train themselves to meet fear daily, to flirt with discomfort, to sit in pain, to walk willingly into the arena, those men become unshakable. The Stoics practiced this by stripping themselves of luxury. Frankl practiced it by finding meaning in unimaginable suffering. Jung practiced it by diving into his own madness. Different methods, same truth. The man who disciplines himself in danger becomes sovereign. Ask yourself, when was the last time you deliberately stepped into the place you didn't want to go? Or have you mistaken safety for virtue? Because here's the brutal fact, safety is slow death. Discipline in danger is life. History doesn't remember the careful men, it remembers the defiant. The ones who stood in the fire, who spoke when silence was safer, who acted when retreat was easier. Fearless men aren't the ones without fear, they're the ones who spit in its face. You will die. That's not philosophy, that's biology. The clock is already ticking, and fear is laughing at how much of your short life it's already stolen. Fear made you waste years in jobs you hated, nights swallowing words you should have said, days shrinking back when you should have stepped forward. Fear has already robbed you. How much more will you give it? Frankl found meaning in Auschwitz. Nietzsche found power in suffering. The Stoics found freedom in imagining their own deaths. What's your excuse? If they could crush fear in hell itself, you can crush it in the boardroom, the bedroom, the street. Society doesn't want fearless men because fearless men can't be controlled. But that's exactly why the world needs them. Fearless men build, protect, fight, love, create. Fearless men live so fully that their existence itself is rebellion. So here's the line in the sand. Stay a prisoner of fear and you'll vanish like smoke, forgotten, compliant, irrelevant. Or step through the fire and claim your life back. Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient. Now. Fear? Fuck it. The world doesn't need another man who obeys. It needs you unleashed.